school, they're saying that Asian Americans are white adjacent. You know, they're saying that Asian Americans has too much privilege. So going into this movie, and if SJWs is as crazy as they are, it'll be interesting if they're gonna cancel Shang-Chi. And if doing that, maybe the Asian conservative movement could actually use that. It's like, see, look how biased these SJWs are against Asian Americans. Hey, what's up you guys? So I'm coming to you with another video, and tonight we are talking about Shang-Chi, talking about Asian men, talking about masculinity. Will Shang-Chi save Asian men? You know, we'll take a look at this with the Fung brothers. Let's get into it.
Let me show you who I can be when I'm in power. Never see what you will believe. I got the power.
But of course, if you're new to my channel, what is up? My name is Mitch, Maverick Mitch. Hey Mitch, all the Mitches, and pretty much I like talking about what I talk about. So current events, reviews, and pop culture within the scope of entertainment, culture, and purpose. So TV reviews, social political commentary. Be sure to check out all those videos as you're finishing this video. And just a quick reminder, I did a season 2 review of The Mandalorian. Be sure to check that out as you're finishing this video. Alright, so going into the meat of this video, I'm gonna do a reaction of the Fung brothers. They recently did a video on Shang-Chi, how it could save Asian men because of the lack of Asian men in Hollywood, you know, less of, you know, Jason Momoa and all these other folks, but maybe this is a catalyst. So they're gonna be talking about it. I like that idea. I wanted to talk about it. The Fung brothers do a lot of like food reviews and all this stuff and like food topics, but sometimes they go and talk about pop culture, and this one I really like. Especially, this talked about like male masculinity, Asian males, and I like that because recently Candace Owens was in the news about like Harry Styles dressing up in dresses, and this was this whole big thing about like losing masculinity within male society in the 2020s, right? And so I think this plays along with it. There's a level in which there is a conservative view, right? And how Asian males has been portrayed as weaklings and submissive and nerdy types in Hollywood for ages, and so we're trying to change that up, and hopefully this Shang-Chi, along with other Asian men, even in Crazy Rich Asians, can really flip that, right? And so we'll try to get into it and then talk about it.
Because Simu really be drinking boba, like in the times that we hung out with him. He got boba in his hand.
Yeah, sure. I'm supporting it.
Hell yeah!
You're hearing about it May 7th, 2021. I'm supporting it.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a special timed list that we got for you. Within 10 minutes, we're going to be giving you 5 reasons why Marvel's Shang-Chi movie is going to be the biggest film for Asians, period, even bigger than Crazy Rich Asians.
Okay, just off the top of my head, obviously this is momentous. Just as much as Black Panther was gonna be what did it for the black community, I think this could be what it could do for the Asian American community. 2 things. One, when it comes to, it'll be interesting, especially when I just said this Shang-Chi movie could do really great for the Asian community, but it'll be interesting because this is more towards the East Asian versus South Asian or even Southeast Asian, right? And so even though it's a good stepping stone, there's still a lot of steps, right? And Asian is a broad category to incorporate all those regions I just mentioned, right? And then secondly, I'm interested of how this will play along, because I would imagine this is a conservative mind frame, and I don't think these guys are conservative, but if we are saying that this is a role model for Asian men, and it's a conservative role model, I think it's an interesting point of contention for these guys, right? Especially when Hollywood is left-leaning, right? For having a male role that is Asian is interesting to perspective. Because like I said, for forever, Hollywood that's left-leaning has been putting Asian American men down. So, yes. Okay. So let's premise with that and then go into it. Also, I think that's another thing I have to mention. I will put timestamps because this is already a 21-minute review, talk and discussion. So on top of that, it's going to be even longer with my commentary. So this is going to be one of my longer videos. So I'll definitely put timestamps and we'll get into it.
That's big. You guys, they just wrapped. They're in promotion mode now. Even though a trailer hasn't dropped yet, we know Simu, we know Aquafina, we know Ronnie. Shout out to all of them. This is big because this is probably the biggest budget Asian American movie in the history of Western society. So that's like English speaking countries.
All right, let's go. David, are you ready to start talking about this list?
Let's get into it.
Point number 1. David, this is probably the biggest budget film to ever have an Asian American star as the lead role.
Right.
Period.
Obviously, long story short, guys, I don't want to get into history. Asians, we're a relatively new
So sorry, I don't know why it keeps on jumping like that, but okay, we'll continue.
population to Western society. Right now, we're speaking English, so we live in Western society. That means we haven't gotten the most media love, or according to some people, very much at all. So now we're starting to, and I think there's several reasons for that. For the first time, I think that Asian women got the love first. Then I think that Asian guys were, a little bit slow to warm up to, but now we're finally getting in there as far as media representation.
Okay, I definitely think that for a long time there was this whole idea that Asians can't sell, especially full Asian guys can't sell. But let me tell you this, Simu is very full Asian, he's born in China, okay? And the movie, based on other Marvel productions, the budget is probably anywhere from $100 to $150 million. That's a lot of money to put behind a full Asian guy in America.
Now, all movies in the Marvel Universe make between $400 million if they flop, which is like Thor, all the way to $3 billion if they're an A+ success. That's like Avengers Endgame. Now, Simu and Shang-Chi is going to fall somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Obviously it's probably not going to be as big as Endgame. I don't think it's going to flop like Thor either. I think there's going to be a domestic box office. I think there's going to be an international box office. Obviously, they're betting on the international one for this one because they can sell it to China, Asia markets, things like that. But at the end of the day, Andrew, does it mean that Asian guys are getting more love, or Asians in general are getting more love? Because for the longest time it was like, Jackie Chan, Jet Li, obviously Bruce Lee 50 years ago, but not Asian Americans that were like natively speaking English.
No, I would say I think the perception is changing. It's getting better every year. There's more and more Asian talent that's legit. There's more and more better Asian stories. Like I said before, if the story and the talent match up, I think there's a shot. I think Hollywood also sees the international play, getting the China market and getting all that money. So guys, I think they do believe, but leave it in the comments down below because I want to also hear your thoughts.
Well, I'm excited because moving on, Black.
Okay, so just a little points there. And okay, so one, I can see where this is becoming a little bit marketable. One, in a sense where the international market, cool. But obviously, going into this MCU right now, there is post-Endgame, it is up for grabs as far as who is gonna be leading the MCU, like who is gonna be the face, who is gonna be the talking point of the MCU moving forward, right? Like it's looking already even with Thor that they're pushing like Lady Thor, and it should have just been not Natalie Portman, it should just be Tessa Thompson that just becomes Lady Thor. Like Valkyrie should have just become Lady Thor. But anyway, and it looks like they're gonna go SJW on that, and they're just like putting on the shelf with Chris Hemsworth, right? And so what I'm trying to say with this Shang-Chi in it, so it looks like this could be, depending on how well received this is, he could be actually the next like face of the MCU. Like, they were trying to do like Captain Marvel, but she is getting not so great reviews. They might do Spider-Man, but that's always been up in the air. But he has always been like, in this MCU version of Spider-Man, he is definitely the predecessor to Tony Stark. But again, we don't know, especially going to Spider-Man 3, how mature he's gonna be. And so this movie might play into having a bigger role for Shang-Chi originally, right? And so maybe he'll be leading up to MCU. That's a big like ask, or a big far-fetched, but we don't know how things are gonna play out. Post like even Black Panther, like rest in peace Chadwick Boseman, right? But even with Letitia Wright, right? She is getting hounded on left-wing Twitter because of her Christian values, just by liking certain posts about questioning the vaccine. She's being canceled. So a lot of things, like right now the MCU is a blank slate, right? And so we don't know where it's gonna go.
Black Panther was my favorite Marvel movie so far.
Hey,
I can see why you could say Avengers Endgame too, but honestly, Black Panther's fire to me.
Thanos was cool.
You know what I mean? It brought in people that's like not into comic books.
Just for my take, I think Captain America Winter Soldier was a really good take. just because it was interesting how that played out. I really like Captain America's dynamic and everything. And I like the dynamic with Black Widow and all that stuff. Obviously, Endgame is top on the list. So, but if it wasn't Endgame, if it wasn't the Infinity Gauntlet saga, you know, I think that would be up there. I haven't really thought about it, but Black Panther would not be up there for me. Like, I love it. It was cool, but it definitely wasn't up there for me as something that I can rewatch and everything. And so, yeah. Okay.
Point number 2. This could potentially build a bridge between the China and US market in the movie industry that has oftentimes failed.
Well,
Let's just keep it in the entertainment stuff, because like when it comes to the communist China, let's separate that. Let's just be real. They planted their flag on the moon. They want to be the next superpower. But that's just my conservative talking point. But we'll go on.
trying to do these co-productions or trying to create products that you can sell to both markets, like an iPhone. iPhones, huge in America, big in China.
Right.
Tesla's big in America, big in China. There's a reason why Apple and Tesla, you cannot bet against those stocks because they're selling to the 2 biggest economies in the world, the USA and China. But it's very hard to sell content the same way. The content is not like an iPhone.
Yeah.
It doesn't really cross the borders as often.
And here's the thing, there's a question about Shang-Chi just because the backstory of the comic book is a little bit, you know, problematic and stereotypical, kind of racist towards Chinese. So obviously you can't take that actual story. You have to change it.
Well,
and
they've
alter it.
morphed the storyline a lot because originally it was kind of like Orientalist. You know, I think they even considered creating a whole new superhero that wasn't called Shang-Chi, but ultimately they went with morphing the original source content.
Now here's what I like about Simu as the talent for this man. I think he was the best pick for this role by far. He's born in China, Harbin, Dongbei. You know, that's a very like bro-ish.
Speaks Mandarin.
Yeah, he speaks Mandarin. And he's grown up in Canada, so you know he's nice. He apologizes a lot. And he's very Asian American. So I'm saying he's kind of in between. He himself is sort of a crossover product, you know, and I've seen him crossover because I've seen him sing the American national anthem at a Clippers game. So, you know, I know that he can cross nations. But I'm saying, I guess the big question is, given that they don't mess up and offend China in this movie, which is the #1 thing you don't want to do when you're trying to sell a movie to China, is offend them. Yeah, will China support this movie?
I think, I think long story short is it's going to really come down to the execution of the movie. I think there's a lot of questions right now. Some people say that Simu or Awkwafina, they don't look like leading men or women in the Chinese film industry, which I agree with. They don't, and I'm sure they would agree with that themselves, but that doesn't matter because we're not necessarily needing to go by their standards. Where everybody, men and women, sort of look like a attractive elf. You know, like everybody in the Chinese film industry, a lot in Asia in general, but I think other Asian countries tend to be a little bit more diverse. In China, for whatever reason, if you don't look like a sexy elf, you cannot be a movie star.
Yeah, and that's what I hate, and I really hate it.
I can't really speak to that portion, but what I want to get into is real quick, for this version of Shang-Chi, you know, I think they were saying like they're gonna make this a little bit of amalgam and everything and change it up a little bit, which is good. Granted, like you're gonna need to, right? And then one thing that I mentioned in other films or other reviews, maybe I said, I don't know if there should have a different powers when it comes to this guy, because the abilities for Shang-Chi was that he was just a good martial artist, just like the best in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and then Iron Fist is supposed to be right below, but he was not supposed to have any powers. But from what I understand, that he will have some powers, and it's gonna be kind of, for me it's cool, but I don't know if it's a cop-out, but from what I understand, from what I read, from what I saw in other people's reviews and everything, that he's gonna be able to multiply himself. I don't know if that means just holograms, or it's gonna be like Kagebushin, like full-on, like, shadow clones, where they're like tangible and everything, so, you know, that's pretty cool. I mean, we kind of seen, you know, Doctor Strange already do that, you know, but we'll go with that. And it kind of ties into that whole cinematic Marvel universe anyway, so it'll be kind of cool. I dig it if that's his like special power, but he definitely needs to have a special ability if he's gonna go into the MCU. But yeah, let's hit it.
Disagree with Asian Americans bringing that kind of like Asian beauty standard over to American movies, because that's not how American movies work. We're about the personality,
Right.
We're about the storyline more than the looks.
And Americans, they gotta be looking ruddy or like fighterish, which I think Simu kind of looks like an NFL player or like a soccer player.
Kickboxer, yeah.
Whereas like Mark Wahlberg, Jeremy Renner, also not considered model good looking like Tom Cruise, but they get to be stars too, even though, but they're like good looking in a kind of a masculine way, you know, like a tough guy.
I mean, let's be honest, Simu is still a way above average looking.
Okay, so just real that. Yeah, I agree. Simu is a very good looking guy. I mean, when it comes to like other Asian guys that are in this, I think a lot of them tend to be like either hybrids, kind of like a Ryan Potter, or even a classic Dean Cain type of thing. So, you know, you have different guys who are good looking in all of this. So, I ain't hating on Simu. So yeah.
Yeah, even though he doesn't hit like China standards for looking like Chris Wu. Anyway,
guys, I think the movie's gonna do fine. All right, point number 3. This movie's a big deal because it seems like in recent history in the movies, Asian Americans have not really taken on martial arts, and this whole movie, Shang-Chi, is about him being a kung fu master.
right. So it's kind of funny because Asian Americans from the 40-year-old generation, I think they spend their whole life saying, I just want to be able to play American roles. I want to be able to play Jim O'Doul, but then just change my last name to Jim Lee or whatever, you know. But now it's almost like every Asian American getting put on right now that's full Asian American, not like Henry Golding. Shout out to Henry Golding, but he's not full Asian, doesn't look full Asian, has to learn martial arts. So it's kind of this weird thing where we feel torn because the martial arts makes us very different from a mainstream American, because a mainstream American wouldn't know martial arts. But at the same time, we need to know martial arts to get the roles to represent our own people so we can feel more normal. So it's this really weird catch-22. Like you said, Asian Americans push, pull with martial arts.
It kind of reminds me, this whole Shang-Chi movie kind of reminds me when Lin Sin he blew up and Jeremy Lin, he was breaking the stereotype that Asian guys can't play basketball, but then he was also perpetuating the stereotype that they all are smart and go to Harvard because he went to Harvard. Right. So it's like a little bit of both, but ultimately it does break it and it does shatter it. And by the way, I do want to know, of course, guys, I know that there is a lot of amazing Asian martial artists from Asia that are famous in movies. Iko Uwais, you got Jet Li, Jackie Chan, all these people. They're from Asia though.
And I do think it's interesting more recently that Asians have sort of lost ownership of martial arts, and I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. It just happened with MMA because the best fighters in the world in the MMA mixed brutal format tend to be more black or white.
Right. And
Whether
you're talking about
Israel,
actual
Conor McGregor.
You're actually talking about fight competition.
Yeah.
Asians, Korean Zombie is in there, but he's not the top considered, or maybe the top in his weight class. But you have one championship coming out of Singapore, but no, UFC is at the top, and the top fighters are not.
Right. So I do think that if you put Simu against like Benedict Cumberbatch in a real MMA fight, I'm taking Simu.
Oh, Benedict.
I might
take him over Chris Pratt too.
Yeah?
Yeah?
I would take him over anybody except Helmsworth.
Yeah.
Just because the size difference, that matters a lot.
He's definitely taking Robert Downey Jr. too.
Moving on to point number 4, why Shang-Chi is even a bigger deal than CRA, and or why is it a big deal?
I think because the Shang-Chi character, it being a Marvel movie, and it being one of those things where you have to love the backstory of the superhero so much that it's just going to be such a multifaceted character, something that we've never seen by an Asian guy, period.
Yeah, and I think
Okay, so real quick, I like this point. Not less the last point, but this point is good because when it comes to like even the SJWs and into this one and identity politics, first and foremost, you need a great character. Like, let alone the backstory, or the backstory plays a part of it, but let alone who the character is in itself. Like, you need a really strong actor and a backstory and story development, because it's obviously this is not gonna work well just having an Asian guy be in it, no matter how talented he is in martial arts. I guess that goes to the last point, but on his acting chops. And obviously acting chops and story, you know, because it can't just be something fighting. There has to be some development there as far as what makes this character great, you know? And especially if we're moving forward into the MCU and there's some very limited of characters to choose from, this, like I said, this could be a really great character if done well. So let's see what they say.
it's just not based off Asians being rich. A lot of stuff, whether that's House of Ho, CRA, you know, I don't even want to get into it. There's like 40 shows. Who's that one girl that's the daughter Dorothy Wang? Like,
dude,
everything is based off Asians being these like wealthy old money or new money people, and it's so like, I really don't like that.
You know what?
As somebody who's not born into an old money Asian family, I think it's funny because I know some of the old money Asians that we do happen to know in our life or come across. They like those shows a lot because it represents how they just ball out of Vancouver, Canada. But anyway, for me personally, I like something that's more based off like what somebody stands for, their principles, their ideals. I think that Simu does stand for a lot off screen. But I think on screen he's going to stand for a lot too. It's going to be sort of a Chadwick Boseman type situation, R.I.P., where he's like a great of a person, or if not greater off screen than he is on screen. You know, Hollywood, they easily could have gotten a yes man to play this role.
Yeah.
Or they could have got somebody whose convictions weren't as strong and just told him, hey, shut up, just be this happy minority.
Just
happy,
smile.
Yeah, just that's happy
Kick some butt.
that's happy to have this role and just dance for us. And totally they could have found Asians willing to do that to uplift themselves in their own life to get the money.
Okay, so I think that's an excellent point too. We'll see how Simu is in this role, as well as I don't know him outside of role. I know he was in The Expanse. Shout out to The Expanse, and I haven't seen this newest season because they're doing it they're releasing it every week. I'll binge it once it all's done. But Simu was in that. He played a Martian, one of the Martian Marines. So really awesome. And then again, it'll be interesting on a personal level. Shout out to Asian Exit. Shout out to the Asian conservatives. Shout out to the Korean conservative and all my active friends. I want to see if, obviously, Simu can't let his politics out there, but after this movie comes out and seeing how the electional environment is in the world, I want to see what it is. More or less, the idea is if you're in Hollywood, if you don't say your politics, that more leans that you're on the conservative side. Then if you are like, hey, what are my pronouns and all that stuff, like, then you're definitely along with like Chris Hemsworth and Mark Ruffalo and all that stuff, and everyone on the left. So yes,
Money and the glory, right? But Simu, me knowing him personally and we knowing him, he is driven by larger ideals.
For sure.
He really is.
No,
like, it ain't just
I believe it.
not just about living a superstar lifestyle.
Simu's personality as a person, whether it's the humor, the backflips that he does, the little singing covers that he does,
Posting on subtle Asian traits.
all his tweets, the SAT postings. I'm telling you, it's all gonna play a part in the Marvel movie. You don't
okay,
understand?
so I haven't seen those tweets, and so those are questionable tweets. Those I would pin as left-leaning tweets on the surface. It could be still right, it could still be conservative. I don't know. I guess this is my hope and projection that he's conservative, because it'll mean a lot to the conservative Asian exit movement. So, but yikes.
How Asian Simu actually is. He drinks boba every day. Like, I swear, maybe not every day. I've seen him drink boba. We've been hanging out. He got boba guys in his hand.
And it's so crazy because, like, for leading Asian males, it's like our representation is so bad. I'm not dissing anybody who found another way into the game. Your Ken Johns, your Jimmy O Yangs, etc., etc. I'm not dissing anybody else's path that, like, kind of like came in as you know, as a different type of character, not an alpha bro leading man.
Right.
But I'm just like, yo, guys, I think for uplifting everybody, this is more bigger in terms of uplifting everybody, because not everybody has those gaps to shoot into the game. You know what I mean? Like the way the Western game, Hollywood game is like they open up certain slots, but the main ones that I guess everybody's like more impacted by, which is like just conventionally positive representation. Simu's like the first one I've seen since like Bruce Lee. I'm not dissing Harold and Kumar either, but I would say that was a realistic portrayal, but that wasn't necessarily like aspirational.
No, I'm saying Simu's part John Cho, part everybody. He's just got a little bit of everybody. Part Kung Fu Master. All right, guys. Point number 5. Another reason why this is such a big deal is because by Simu coming up and Simu being so involved in the Asian community, that it is actually going to lift up and change the Asian entertainment community as a whole.
Yeah, I think that you have a possibility to create like a Bruce Lee, Mark Wahlberg, Kevin Hart, you know, situation where if he gets big enough and successful enough off this, he's able to have his own production company or run his own system, as well as be in Hollywood projects. It's almost like it's introducing, you're creating a king a kingmaker.
Yeah, and he has that mindset knowing Simu. He can definitely run a media company in the future if he chooses to. And also, to be honest, man, I mean, if there's just multiple Marvel movies, Shang-Chi does well, and hopefully there is, that means just more Asians are going to be in those movies too.
Yeah.
So more Asians are going to come up. So it's just good for everybody.
And that's what I love about, looking at a Kevin Hart, LeBron, like I said, Mark Wahlberg. Like, Mark Wahlberg gave all these, like, rough Irish guys from Boston Hollywood jobs. You wouldn't think that's what Entourage is all about. Guys that wouldn't make it in that game normally being in that game. Kevin Hart bringing in everybody from Philadelphia, and LeBron bringing up an entire, empire around him. He could have outsourced a lot of it, but he wanted to do it DIY.
All right, David, we just wrapped up the 5 reasons why we think Shang-Chi is going to be such a impactful movie for Asians, period. But what are some questions that people have about the movie? And I think one of the main questions is, are other Marvel fans going to actually watch this film, or is it too Asian?
Right.
Real quick on that note, I think it's a little too early to tell, right? And we don't know how this is going to be received. What it's going to be good and how it's going to be received well is if in itself it can't just be an action movie. It has to be something at the core that is inspiring, right? Because that's what we need right now. Like we have seen all the action stuff, but something that is maybe thought-provoking, and I'm not saying in an SJW way, but something that is thought-provoking in itself, like maybe going into male masculinity or whatever. Hopefully it plays into that, but like obviously the movie's already been made, so we don't even know. Going into this other thing, when he was mentioning about bringing the Asian community together, the Asian American community together, I agree. Going into the Asian exit movement, it'll be interesting how that plays out, because maybe, just maybe, we can talk about Asian core values that are conservative, hardworking, and everything, even though this is a like Hollywood type thing, which is more artistic, which is more liberal in itself. But maybe there is a discussion that we can make with even just using this as a model, that we can say like how Asian men could do well. I only bring that up because there is other documents. I haven't done a video on this, but there is other things in which other schools, whether through affirmative action and whether it's through their woke school, they're saying that Asian Americans are white adjacent. They're saying that Asian Americans has too much privilege. So going into this movie, and if SJWs is as crazy as they are, it'll be interesting if they're going to cancel Shang-Chi. And if doing that, maybe the Asian conservative movement could actually use that. Like, see, look how biased these SJWs are against Asian Americans. They're talking about Asians as white privilege, Asians as white adjacent, Asians as using their yellow privilege. It'll be crazy. So I'm more interested in the cultural aspect of this. Of course I am. So
Because the majority of Marvel fans are American. They're probably more reflective of the demographics of America, which is primarily white and black.
Yeah. You go to Comic-Con, you know who's there.
To a lesser extent. But yeah, like I would say that some are going to watch this and some are not. For some people, this is going to be the first Marvel movie they skip in a long time.
Oh!
Which would be pretty messed up, to be honest. And some are going to more reluctantly watch it. And, I hope that they watch it. I know that Black Panther ended up grossing $1.5 billion worldwide. It's in the top 5 grossing Marvel movies. Top 5 out of like 20. So that's a pretty good sign. But I know that some Marvel fans were like mad, just like when they were mad when they casted John in Star Wars.
Boyega,
yeah, Boyega in Star Wars, because they're like, oh, why is you shoving diversity down my throat?
Right,
I just like watching people that are more like me. Yeah. What's the big deal?
Why do these movies have to pander and cater?
Well, I don't want to see Kelly Marie Tran be like.
It's unnecessary. Well, guess what? It's going to be necessary to watch this movie to keep up with the Marvel Universe, because there's going to be a bunch of Easter eggs and information in it that you got to watch. So at least I think they're going to reluctantly watch it, but I do think that there's some people whose biases.
What if they illegally stream it? So
okay, just go on this point, because there's a slight jab into how people, what they would perceive, why are they like pushing diversity and everything. It's not that diversity is a problem. It's just when you put diversity on top of what the character is. So going back to Kelly Marie Tran in the Last of the Jedi, the Last Jedi, whatever. But even then, it was just a bad character. I'm more interested of Rose Tico, sister on the bomber, and again, the bomber was stupid. Like, why are you gonna have a slow ass bomber in space and then that has like 0 shield, that is totally vulnerable and super slow, and it's gonna drop like as if it was World War II. Like, imagery looks cool, but it doesn't make sense. But that's let alone. I was more interested in that bomber than I was in Rose Tico. Okay, Rose Tico was the lamest character. It wasn't about like Kelly Marie Tran. It's about Rose Tico. You want to talk about badass Asian woman? How about Ming Na? Okay, Fennec Shake, whatever. Fennec Shan, sorry. Fennec Shan, that's how much I know the character. I can say Fennec Shan of Mandalorian, an Asian American woman, Ming Na, legendary, and she's a badass. She has like robot parts now, and she's like one of like the best sharpshooter, whatever, bounty hunters over there. And so we have that. So it doesn't matter. Point being is that it's not the diversity that matters. It is making character growth. And Rose Tico was the lamest character ever in Star Wars. Maybe just slightly above Jar Jar Binks. If Jar Jar Binks was a Sith Lord, then we can like the whole Tobi Obito situation in Naruto, like, and he was just playing the dumb character, but he was actually a smart, like, diabolical character, then we can forgive that, but they didn't.
That's gonna be a protest, bro. No, I'll tell you this: if you're a Marvel fan, right, and you don't watch this movie and you purposely illegally stream it, that's just like racist, man. Like, to be honest, to go out of your way to do that. All right, granted, I don't know the situation with theaters when this movie drops in July.
Yeah, that'll affect the box office.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm just saying, guys, come on. This is a movie.
The next question is, do we think that Asians in Asia are ultimately going to support this?
And if they don't, does that mean the movie will fail? Because this movie is so Asian, it has so many Chinese
You're saying
stars.
it's so... I'm sure the economic algorithm, when all the accountants and finance people crunched the green lighting of this movie, international box office was a outsized or overrepresented portion of the algorithm.
But CRA, Crazy Rich Asians, didn't do well in China, and that did really well overall. So can it do without China and Asia?
No.
You don't think so?
No, it cannot. Well, because the whole point that they greenlit it was to break open that market, so that's what their big money play is, in my opinion.
I think it can survive. I think it can survive without China. I don't think that, obviously, they should do anything that would offend China in the movie, obviously, and they should really be careful about that. But
it's tough to say, man. I'm not like...
Just on my note, if this movie comes out, whatever, summer 2021, and we don't know where, like, theaters are in the moment, if theaters are open, and there's a big blockbuster in summer, and people haven't been into the movies since 5 this could be great. We don't know. We don't know what's gonna happen. Like, obviously 2020 like suffered the whole movie industry for the whole year. But if this movie is super great, and it could just even be a safe movie, but because there are no blockbusters and because people have been missing the theaters, and there's a good portion that people want to watch movies at home, I get that. But I like watching movies in public. I like being in the atmosphere. So this movie could capture that. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen, right? And so I think that's a fair point.
Industry insider in terms of like the deal making behind it, but I think it's pretty.
I think Simu's going to promote his ass off, man.
Hey, 我是哈尔滨出生了. Shout out to Dongbei. Andrew, what are the other questions, man? We gotta get wrapped
all right,
up
man.
into this, man.
Is this the most biggest Asian American film ever because an Asian American is at the lead, or is Tokyo Drift still the most Asian film ever?
All right, Tokyo Drift is the biggest ASEAN movie ever, easily.
Super underrated.
And then this one, it's tough to call it Asian American. I think it is, but a lot of it does take place, I believe, in China, even though they filmed it in Australia, and Chinatown, San Francisco. That's where the two zones do. So it's like, it's not as ASEAN. Tokyo Drift was ASEAN.
But Simu, do you think boba pops up in the movie somehow? Because Simu really be drinking boba. Like in the times that we hung out with him, he got boba in his hand.
Yeah, shout out to we got boba guys.
Boba guys.
But
yes.
I mean, I would say that it really depends on the execution.
No,
But
you know
it's
what?
going to be tough for Asian Americans, to be honest, especially more on the ASEAN side. I think if you more like relate to, and shout out to everybody, like if you more relate to Ruji from like Rude, and you're more like on the street side, like more Southeast Asian, that's like more how we grew up in South Seattle. I don't think that Shang-Chi's going to fully represent you.
Well, I think he's gonna represent you better than Crazy Rich Asians did.
Yeah, but
not perfectly.
it's not better than Tokyo Drift.
Not everything can be for everybody. Not everything can be everything for everybody. That's the truth. But I will say
It's
this:
just the beginning. You got to get the ball rolling.
I'm just saying, if they're shooting stuff in San Francisco, can there be like an ABG in the background or something like that? I don't know. You know, that's more San Jose, but SF got it too.
Maybe like a half Filipino, half Japanese ABG.
Well, you know, Boba Guys is from SF, so they might have snuck it in the background. Who knows? All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching that list of 5 reasons why Shang-Chi is going to be such a big deal for Asians, and also, you know, the tough, hard questions that people are asking. Guys, the movie's coming out in July 2021. Trailer's probably going to be out in a couple months. I'm excited. We're excited.
It's a big deal, man. I hope that everybody is able to get behind it. I know, you know, it's going to be different and the same in some ways as CRA, but like, you know, I'm supporting it.
Hell yeah.
You're hearing about it May 7th, 2021. I'm supporting it, but at the same time, anybody's criticisms or analysis or pros and cons of it, totally valid too. I just invite everybody to be engaged and care about this. Care about Shang-Chi.
Leave it in the comments below what you think about Shang-Chi.
I'm excited for Raya too, though.
Raya's popping off soon. Let's get it. Leave it in the comments down below, guys. Thank you so much for watching. That was our list video. Please click subscribe, hit the like button, help us out. Thank you very much.
Do you think Shang-Chi will be successful? Yes or no, and why? Until next time, we out. Peace.
Alright, so let's go into my thoughts. Okay, so off the top of my head, I'm gonna watch Shang-Chi just because not only is it gonna be an Asian film, but because I am big part of the MCU, and maybe there is a portion of people who are MCU tapped out, right? But I think there is a gap, especially when it comes to 2020. I think there's a large enough gap in which we were like, okay, how we're gonna move the MCU forward from here on out. And you know, just as much as I think Star Wars is doing a great job, Disney Plus is doing a great job picking up what was left of Game of Thrones, what is left of big blusters, but they're doing it on a episode format, right? But there isn't post Endgame 2020, you know, there isn't anything that's like big blockbusters continuing like a cinematic universe because DC flopped up, right? And so there isn't anyone that's doing a cinematic universe. And so going into this, it's a soft reboot, right? Like I said, even though Spider-Man 2 came out and it was post Endgame, it was still within that wave in that last movie era, right? And so going into this movie just because it could be a spark, you know, we don't know where the MCU is going, right? 2, if lockdowns is down, if theaters are fully open, if there's no blockbusters and people are in them, like I said, wanting to go in the theaters, in the seats, have a nice movie environment experience once again, this could be really great, you know? And I think a lot of the MCU people will check it out just to check it out, right? Because even like Black Widow wasn't out there. Maybe Black Widow, if it was released in 2020 as if it was scheduled, maybe that wouldn't have done well. But going into 2021 and we really didn't watch any MCU movies, maybe people's hunger will go back to the MCU, especially if it's a good, solid movie. It could just be a safe movie, right? And it could be done very well. My final thoughts is more on how is Shang-Chi gonna play out. You know, my thing is how he's gonna play out as this character is, because they are gonna be, it's amalgam, it's gonna change up, it's gonna be kind of like a different Shang-Chi, I would imagine, right? If he is gonna be born in America or something, I'm more interested in that, right? I'm more interested how this will play out for the Asian conservatives, right? Because obviously I talk about the Asian community, like Asian American conservative movement, right? I'm gonna be interested how this will play out, right? If if there is news about like how Asian Americans are being like the white adjacents and there's Asian privilege, this may be a catalyst in which people will actually watch it to just like F the naysayers, right? Especially if there's a big Asian American community and they'll be like, what the F, why are we being like downgraded? Like we're like that there's a statistics in which there was like POCs and non-POCs. Non-POCs included white people and Asians. And so if those things pop out right before the movie and that kind of angers people to do it, maybe this goes into it. And again, I want to see how this may play into as an Asian male community, in the sense like I was saying, will this save Asian men? Will this save masculinity in that you can be Asian and a guy and masculine, right? When for decades, like especially during the 80s and 90s, Asian men were seen as emasculated and even not effeminate when it comes to Hollywood. And so I will be interested that this may push more Asian American millennials, Gen Z, into the conservative movement, right? And so I don't know, that's just my take. That's the way I'm gonna pitch it. Like I want to like let other people know, like if you want to say like Asian Americans are like not great or whatever, they're not part of the POC, you know, I'm just gonna, what I'm trying to say is this movie could play a bigger role than people might think, not even just for the Asian American in the Hollywood whatever, but in the overall conversations with Asian Americans and especially in the conservative movement. So I don't know, I would like to think so. That's the way, like I said, that's how I'm gonna pitch it. Yeah, so again, thank you for watching. You can follow me at my Instagram at Hey Mitch. You can follow my joint Instagram at It's Mandatory Fun, where I do other videos with my friend Jen. I'm also on Parlor, Maverick Mitch. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment below. Peace, peace, peace. Be with you.